Question 1. During the evaluation of a complex IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application experiencing data replication conflicts across multiple servers, a developer identifies that certain records are being inconsistently updated. The application manages sensitive customer contact information. The developer needs to implement a strategy to resolve these conflicts and ensure data accuracy without compromising the integrity of the customer data or introducing security vulnerabilities. Which of the following strategies best addresses this situation while adhering to professional development practices for IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition? Option A. Implement a custom agent that automatically resolves conflicts by prioritizing the most recently modified document, logging the overwritten documents for later review. Option B. Configure the replication settings to ignore all conflicts, assuming that the application logic will eventually correct any discrepancies. Option C. Develop a reconciliation process that logs all conflicting documents, flags them for review by a designated administrator, and provides tools for controlled merging or correction based on defined business rules. Option D. Manually review and resolve each replication conflict as it arises, ensuring that the correct version of the document is maintained. The correct answer is A. Implement a custom agent that automatically resolves conflicts by prioritizing the most recently modified document, logging the overwritten documents for later review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a developer to balance the need for efficient data management with the critical requirement of data integrity and security, especially when dealing with sensitive customer information. The developer must make a judgment call on how to handle potential data inconsistencies that could arise from a complex replication scenario. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen solution not only resolves the immediate technical issue, but also adheres to established best practices for data handling and application development within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and auditability. By implementing a robust reconciliation process that logs all changes and provides a clear audit trail, the developer ensures that any discrepancies can be identified, investigated, and corrected without compromising the accuracy or security of the data. This aligns with the general principles of responsible data management and application development, which emphasize transparency and accountability. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino, maintaining data consistency across replicated databases is a fundamental aspect of application reliability. An incorrect approach that involves simply overriding data without a proper reconciliation mechanism fails to address the root cause of the inconsistency and risks losing valuable historical data or introducing new errors. This is professionally unacceptable as it demonstrates a lack of diligence in data handling and could lead to compliance issues if the data is subject to regulatory scrutiny. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the inconsistencies, is even more problematic. This approach abdicates responsibility for data quality and security, creating a significant risk of data corruption and potential breaches of trust with users or clients. It directly violates the professional obligation to maintain the integrity and security of the applications and data they manage. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the problem, considering the potential impact on data integrity, security, and user experience. Developers should first attempt to understand the cause of the inconsistency. Then, they should explore solutions that prioritize data accuracy and provide an audit trail. If a direct resolution isn't immediately apparent, a phased approach involving logging, analysis, and controlled correction is preferable to any solution that risks data loss or corruption. Consulting documentation, best practices, and potentially seeking input from experienced colleagues or support resources is also a crucial part of this decision-making process. Question 2. Compliance review shows that a critical IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is experiencing significant performance degradation, leading to user complaints about slow response times during peak usage hours. Developers have observed that certain scheduled agents and user-initiated actions are taking considerably longer to complete than they did previously. What is the most appropriate initial step to address this process optimization challenge? Option A. Immediately increase the server's available memory to see if additional resources alleviate the performance bottleneck. Option B. Randomly rewrite sections of the application's Lotus script and Java code that are suspected of causing the slowdown. Option C. Extend the timeout values for all scheduled agents and user-initiated tasks to allow them more time to complete. Option D. Utilize application profiling tools to identify specific code sections or database operations that are consuming excessive resources or executing inefficiently. The correct answer is D. Utilize application profiling tools to identify specific code sections or database operations that are consuming excessive resources or executing inefficiently. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where performance bottlenecks can impact user experience and potentially violate service-level agreements, SLAs, or internal performance standards. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance degradation and implementing an effective solution without introducing new issues or compromising data integrity. Developers must balance the need for speed with the imperative of maintaining application stability and adherence to established development practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation, profiling the application's execution flow, and identifying specific Lotus script or Java code sections that consume excessive resources or execute inefficiently is paramount. This allows for targeted optimization of the problematic code, such as refactoring loops, optimizing database queries, or improving data retrieval mechanisms. This method aligns with best practices for process optimization by addressing the actual source of the inefficiency, leading to sustainable performance improvements and ensuring the application remains responsive and reliable, thereby meeting user expectations and any implicit or explicit performance commitments. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested change like increasing the server's memory without a clear understanding of the application's resource utilization is a speculative and potentially detrimental approach. This could lead to unnecessary infrastructure costs and might not resolve the underlying application-level issue. It bypasses the critical step of diagnosing the problem, which is a failure in professional due diligence. Another incorrect approach is to simply increase the timeout values for agents or tasks. While this might mask the symptom of slowness by allowing tasks to complete, it does not address the root cause of the inefficiency. This is a form of technical debt accumulation, as the underlying performance problem remains, potentially leading to more severe issues or increased resource consumption over time. This approach fails to optimize the process and can lead to a degraded user experience or system instability if the timeouts are eventually exceeded again. Finally, randomly rewriting sections of code without profiling or understanding their impact is highly unprofessional and risky. This can introduce new bugs, break existing functionality, and further degrade performance. It demonstrates a lack of systematic problem-solving and a disregard for established development methodologies, which are crucial for maintaining application integrity and reliability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a baseline of expected performance. Then, they should utilize profiling tools to gather data on the application's behavior. This data should inform a hypothesis about the cause of the performance degradation. Based on the hypothesis, targeted changes should be designed and implemented, followed by rigorous testing to confirm the improvement and ensure no regressions have occurred. This iterative, data-informed process is essential for effective and responsible application development and maintenance. Question 3. Regulatory review indicates that the development of a new IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application requires a comprehensive approach to data risk assessment. Which of the following strategies best aligns with regulatory expectations for managing potential data vulnerabilities during the application development lifecycle? Option A. Proceed with development based on the assumption that the application's inherent security features will adequately protect all data, deferring any formal risk assessment until after deployment. Option B. Implement security controls only after a data breach has occurred to demonstrate responsiveness to actual threats. Option C. Conduct a thorough data risk assessment early in the development lifecycle, identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impact, and integrating mitigation strategies into the application design and development process. Option D. Rely on general IT security policies, without performing a specific risk assessment tailored to the new application's data types and functionalities. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough data risk assessment early in the development lifecycle, identifying potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impact, and integrating mitigation strategies into the application design and development process. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient application development with the imperative to adhere to regulatory requirements concerning data risk assessment. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential risks associated with sensitive data handled by the Domino application, without introducing undue development delays or compromising the application's functionality. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the risk assessment process is thorough, documented, and integrated into the development lifecycle, rather than being an afterthought. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it proactively integrates risk assessment into the application development process. By identifying potential risks early, developers can implement appropriate security controls and data handling procedures from the outset. This aligns with the principles of data protection and privacy regulations, which mandate that organizations take reasonable steps to protect sensitive information. Proactive risk assessment minimizes the likelihood of data breaches, unauthorized access, and noncompliance, thereby safeguarding both the organization and its users. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal risk assessment process for the new Domino application is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes regulatory expectations for data protection and risk management. It demonstrates a disregard for potential vulnerabilities and the sensitive nature of the data the application will process. Such an approach creates significant ethical and regulatory exposure, potentially leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on the application's existing security features without a specific assessment of the new data types and functionalities is also professionally unsound. While existing security measures are important, they may not adequately address the unique risks introduced by the specific data and workflows of the updated application. This oversight can lead to unforeseen vulnerabilities and noncompliance, as it fails to conduct a tailored risk assessment for the new development. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to risk management. This includes 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape and specific data protection requirements applicable to the organization and the data being handled. 2. Identifying all data elements the application will process, classify their sensitivity, and understand their life cycle. 3. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to identify potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their impact. 4. Developing and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies and controls. 5. Documenting the entire process, including the assessment, decisions, and implemented controls. And 6. Establishing a process for ongoing monitoring and review of risks. Question 4. The performance metrics show a significant increase in error rates and a slowdown in user response times for a core business application. Investigation reveals that a critical third-party component, integral to the application's data processing, is no longer supported by the vendor, and its end-of-life status has been officially announced. The application handles sensitive customer data, and the company operates under strict data privacy regulations. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation? Option A. Continue using the unsupported component while implementing ad hoc security patches as vulnerabilities are discovered, deferring any major changes until a critical failure occurs. Option B. Immediately initiate a phased migration to a supported and equivalent third-party component, prioritizing a thorough risk assessment of the existing unsupported component and its potential impact on data security and compliance throughout the transition. Option C. Develop a completely new application from scratch to replace the existing one, as this offers the most secure and modern solution. Option D. Implement a quick, undocumented workaround to mask the performance issues and error rates, without addressing the root cause of the unsupported component. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a phased migration to a supported and equivalent third-party component, prioritizing a thorough risk assessment of the existing unsupported component and its potential impact on data security and compliance throughout the transition. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a critical business process relies on a component that is no longer supported by the vendor. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for functionality and data integrity with the long-term risks associated with using outdated technology. The pressure to deliver a quick fix can lead to shortcuts that compromise security, compliance, and future maintainability. Careful judgment is required to assess the true impact of the unsupported component and to select a solution that aligns with both business objectives and regulatory expectations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment and a phased migration strategy. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing data security, application stability, and compliance. By understanding the specific vulnerabilities of the unsupported component and the potential impact on sensitive data, developers can make informed decisions about mitigation strategies. A phased migration allows for controlled testing and deployment, minimizing disruption and ensuring that the new solution meets all functional and non-functional requirements. This proactive approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to maintaining a secure and compliant application environment, which is paramount in any regulated industry. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing to use the unsupported component without any mitigation or plan for replacement is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It exposes the application and its data to known security vulnerabilities, potentially violating data protection regulations and leading to breaches. This approach demonstrates negligence and a disregard for risk management. Implementing a quick, undocumented patch without a comprehensive understanding of its long-term implications or potential side effects is also professionally unacceptable. Such patches can introduce new bugs, create security holes, or conflict with other system components, leading to instability and further compliance issues. This approach prioritizes expediency over thoroughness and risk assessment. Developing a completely new application from scratch without first evaluating if a less disruptive upgrade or migration path exists is inefficient and potentially costly. While a new application might seem like a clean slate, it bypasses opportunities to leverage existing investments and may not address the core business need as effectively or as quickly as a targeted migration. This approach can be seen as a failure to optimize resources and a lack of strategic planning. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing this situation should follow a structured decision-making process. 1. Identify and document the unsupported component and its criticality to the application. 2. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, focusing on security vulnerabilities, data integrity, and potential compliance violations. 3. Research available vendor support options, including extended support or end-of-life migration paths. 4. Evaluate alternative solutions, considering factors like cost, time to implement, impact on existing functionality, and long-term maintainability. 5. Develop a phased migration plan with clear milestones, testing procedures, and rollback strategies. 6. Obtain necessary approvals and communicate the plan to stakeholders. 7. Execute the migration, monitor performance, and validate functionality post-deployment. 8. Document all decisions, actions, and outcomes for audit and future reference. Question 5. Governance review demonstrates that an existing IBM Domino 9.0 Social Edition application collects and stores a significant volume of user data, some of which may no longer be strictly necessary for its original intended purpose. The development team is tasked with ensuring the application's compliance with current data protection regulations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation? Option A. Focus on enhancing data security measures for all collected data without reviewing the necessity or purpose of each data element, believing that robust security negates the need for data minimization. Option B. Implement a comprehensive data anonymization strategy across all user data fields, regardless of their current necessity or potential future use, to broadly reduce the data footprint. Option C. Assume that the application's historical data collection practices are compliant with current regulations due to its long operational history, and continue with the existing data handling procedures. Option D. Conduct a detailed audit to identify specific data elements that are no longer required for their documented purposes, implement targeted data deletion or pseudonymization for those elements, and establish clear data retention policies aligned with regulatory requirements. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive data anonymization strategy across all user data fields, regardless of their current necessity or potential future use, to broadly reduce the data footprint. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for efficient data handling with the imperative of regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data privacy and security. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation within the context of an existing IBM Notes/Domino application that may have been developed without explicit consideration for these evolving regulatory requirements. Developers must navigate the technical complexities of the Domino environment while ensuring adherence to the specified regulatory framework, which in this context is assumed to be aligned with general data protection principles applicable in many jurisdictions, focusing on the spirit of regulations like GDPR or similar frameworks without explicitly naming them due to the exam's constraint. The risk of noncompliance, including potential fines and reputational damage, necessitates a rigorous and informed approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the application's data collection, processing, and storage mechanisms against the defined regulatory requirements. This means identifying all data points collected, their original purpose, and whether they are still necessary for that purpose or any other legitimate, documented purpose. Implementing mechanisms to anonymize or pseudonymize data where possible, and establishing clear data retention policies that align with regulatory mandates are critical. This approach directly addresses the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that only necessary data is processed for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes. It demonstrates a proactive commitment to compliance and responsible data stewardship, which is best professional practice. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that because the application has been in use for a long time without reported issues, it automatically meets current regulatory standards. This ignores the dynamic nature of data protection laws and the potential for latent noncompliance. Represents a failure to conduct due diligence and a passive acceptance of risk, which is professionally unacceptable and ethically questionable. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on technical implementation without understanding the underlying regulatory intent. For example, simply deleting data without a clear policy or justification might lead to the loss of data that is legally required to be retained for audit or legal purposes. This demonstrates a superficial understanding of compliance and can lead to new regulatory breaches. A third incorrect approach is to implement broad, blanket data anonymization without considering the specific requirements of different data types or the potential impact on application functionality. This can render the application unusable or compromise its intended purpose, while also potentially failing to meet the nuanced requirements of data protection regulations, which often distinguish between different types of personal data and their processing contexts. This approach lacks the precision and targeted strategy required for effective and compliant data management. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with this situation should adopt a systematic, risk-based approach. First, thoroughly understand the applicable regulatory framework and its specific requirements regarding data handling. Second, conduct a comprehensive audit of the IBM Notes/Domino application to identify all data elements, their sources, purposes, and retention periods. Third, assess the collected data against the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation. Fourth, develop and implement a remediation plan that may include data anonymization, pseudonymization, deletion, or enhanced access controls, ensuring alignment with regulatory mandates and business needs. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and review processes to ensure continued compliance. This structured approach prioritizes understanding, targeted action, and continuous improvement, fostering a culture of responsible data governance. Question 6. Implementation of a new customer relationship management (CRM) application in IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition requires strict enforcement of data integrity for customer contact details, including preventing duplicate entries and ensuring all mandatory fields are populated before a record can be saved. The development team is considering various approaches to achieve this, which approach best balances security, data integrity, and user experience while adhering to professional development standards. Option A. Configure the database ACL to reader access for all users and instruct them to manually verify data accuracy before any potential edits. Option B. Rely solely on client-side JavaScript validation within the forms to alert users to missing mandatory fields or potential duplicates before submission. Option C. Set the access control list ACL for the database to allow anyone to edit and assume users will exercise due diligence in data entry. Option D. Develop server-side agents that trigger on document save to perform comprehensive validation checks, including duplicate detection and mandatory field verification, and supplement this with field-level validation rules within the forms to provide immediate user feedback. The correct answer is D. Develop server-side agents that trigger on document save to perform comprehensive validation checks, including duplicate detection and mandatory field verification, and supplement this with field-level validation rules within the forms to provide immediate user feedback. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a critical business requirement for data integrity clashes with the need for efficient data retrieval. The developer must balance the imperative of ensuring data accuracy and preventing unauthorized modifications with the practicalities of performance and user experience. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most robust and compliant method for enforcing these constraints within the Domino environment, considering the implications for data security, auditability, and potential future system upgrades. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach leverages Domino's built-in security and data validation mechanisms to enforce data integrity. Implementing a server-side agent that runs on document save, coupled with field-level validation rules, provides a multi-layered defense. The agent can perform complex checks that might not be feasible with simple field rules, such as cross-document validation or checking against external data sources. Field-level validation rules offer immediate feedback to the user during data entry, preventing obviously incorrect data from being submitted. This combination ensures that data is validated both proactively during entry and reactively upon save, aligning with best practices for data governance and compliance. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes data integrity, a fundamental requirement for reliable business operations and regulatory adherence. It minimizes the risk of data corruption or unauthorized changes, which could have significant financial and legal repercussions. Incorrect approaches analysis. Relying solely on client-side JavaScript for validation is professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and security failures. Client-side scripts can be easily bypassed or disabled by users, rendering the validation ineffective. This creates a direct vulnerability for data integrity and could lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations that mandate accurate and secure data. Implementing a simple, allow anyone to edit ACL setting without any server-side validation is a severe security and compliance failure. This approach completely disregards the need for data integrity and access control, opening the door to accidental or malicious data alteration by any user. This would violate principles of least privilege and data stewardship, making the application non-compliant with any regulatory framework requiring data accuracy and security. Using only a reader, ACL, and expecting users to manually ensure data accuracy is also professionally unsound. While it restricts editing, it does not provide any mechanism to enforce data integrity or prevent errors during the rare instances when editing might be permitted. This approach fails to proactively protect data and relies on user diligence, which is an unreliable method for ensuring compliance and data accuracy in a business context. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes data integrity and security, especially when dealing with sensitive business data. This involves 1. Understanding the business requirements. Clearly define what constitutes accurate and authorized data. 2. Identifying risks. Assess potential threats to data integrity, including accidental errors, malicious intent, and system vulnerabilities. 3. Evaluating technical solutions. Explore available tools and features within the development platform, IBM Domino 9.0 Social Edition, that can address these risks. 4. Layering security and validation. Implement multiple layers of defense, combining client-side checks for user experience with robust server-side enforcement for security and compliance. 5. Considering compliance frameworks. Ensure the chosen solution aligns with relevant industry regulations and internal data governance policies. 6. Testing thoroughly. Rigorously test all validation and security mechanisms to confirm their effectiveness. Question 7. System analysis indicates that a developer working on an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application has identified a potential security flaw in a core function that could expose sensitive user data if exploited. The application is critical to daily operations, and a fix might require significant downtime or a complex workaround. The developer is concerned about the potential impact on users and the organization if the vulnerability is exploited, but also about the disruption a fix might cause. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the developer? Option A. Ignore the vulnerability, assuming it is unlikely to be exploited and that the risk of disruption from a fix outweighs the potential risk. Option B. Publicly disclose the vulnerability on a developer forum to seek community solutions and raise awareness. Option C. Report the vulnerability to their direct manager and the designated security team, providing detailed documentation of the issue and its potential impact, and await their guidance on remediation. Option D. Immediately implement a workaround to mitigate the vulnerability, documenting the changes for later formal review. Correct answer is D. Immediately implement a workaround to mitigate the vulnerability, documenting the changes for later formal review. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in application development where a developer discovers a potential security vulnerability in a widely used, but older, IBM Notes/Domino application. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to address the vulnerability with the potential disruption to business operations, and the responsibility to the end users and the organization. The developer must consider the implications of their actions on data integrity, user access, and compliance with any applicable data protection regulations. Even if not explicitly stated in the exam syllabus, the underlying principles of responsible development and data stewardship are paramount. The correct approach involves a structured, responsible, and transparent process. This means thoroughly documenting the vulnerability, assessing its impact, and then escalating it through appropriate channels within the organization. This typically involves informing management and the security team, who can then make informed decisions about remediation, considering factors like risk tolerance, available resources, and business continuity. This approach upholds professional integrity by prioritizing security and data protection while adhering to organizational protocols. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical development practices, ensuring that potential harm is mitigated proactively and responsibly. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability due to fear of repercussions or the effort involved in fixing it. This is a direct failure of professional responsibility and could lead to significant data breaches, financial losses, and reputational damage for the organization. Another incorrect approach is to attempt to fix the vulnerability unilaterally without proper authorization or testing. This could introduce new, unforeseen issues, disrupt existing functionality, or even violate internal policies regarding change management and application modification. A third incorrect approach is to disclose the vulnerability publicly without first informing the organization and allowing them a reasonable time to address it. This could be seen as a breach of trust and could expose the organization and its users to immediate risk. Professionals facing such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment, adherence to organizational policies, and ethical considerations. This involves 1. Identifying the problem and its potential impact. 2. Consulting relevant internal policies and procedures. 3. Documenting findings clearly and objectively. 4. Escalating the issue to the appropriate stakeholders. 5. Collaborating on a solution that balances security needs with business requirements. 6. Ensuring all actions are transparent and accountable. Question 8. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a custom IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 application designed to manage employee performance reviews contains sensitive personal data, including salary information and disciplinary actions. The application needs to allow managers to view and edit reviews for their direct reports, while HR personnel require access to all reviews for reporting purposes. Junior developer has proposed creating a single view that displays all review records, and then using an agent to filter the data displayed to the current user based on their group membership. What is the most secure and professionally sound approach to implement this data access control? Option A. Create a single view that displays all review records and rely solely on an agent to filter the data displayed to the current user based on their group membership. Option B. Design a view with specific reader fields that grant access to review records based on the user's role, manager, or HR, and create separate views for managers to edit their direct reports reviews, restricting edit access via document security. Option C. Grant all users who need to interact with the application broad read and edit access to the underlying database ACL. Option D. Embed sensitive user credentials within agents to access and filter data, allowing all users to see all records initially. The correct answer is B. Design a view with specific reader fields that grant access to review records based on the user's role, manager, or HR, and create separate views for managers to edit their direct reports reviews, restricting edit access via document security. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with the security and privacy implications of accessing sensitive user information. The developer must navigate the complexities of Domino's security model, specifically access control lists, ACL, and the potential for unintended data exposure when designing views and agents. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the application adheres to the principle of least privilege, preventing unauthorized access to sensitive data while still enabling legitimate business functions. This requires a thorough understanding of Domino's security mechanisms and how they interact with application logic. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves designing a view that filters data based on the user's role or group membership, leveraging Domino's built-in security features. This aligns with best professional practices by implementing security at the data access layer. Specifically, using a view with appropriate reader fields or an agent that dynamically restricts data based on the current user's identity ensures that only authorized individuals can see specific records. This adheres to the principle of least privilege, a fundamental tenet of information security and data privacy regulations. By limiting data visibility to what is strictly necessary for a user's role, the application minimizes the risk of data breaches and unauthorized disclosure, which is a critical compliance requirement. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to create a view that displays all records and then rely solely on agent logic to filter data for the current user. This is professionally unacceptable because it creates a potential security vulnerability. If the agent logic fails or is bypassed, sensitive data could be exposed to unauthorized users. This violates the principle of defense in depth and places undue reliance on application code for security, which is inherently less robust than leveraging the platform's native security controls. Another incorrect approach is to grant broad access to the underlying database ACL for all users who need to interact with the application. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Broad ACL permissions bypass the granular control needed for sensitive data, leading to potential unauthorized access and violation of data privacy principles. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of how to implement secure data segregation within a Domino application. A third incorrect approach is to embed sensitive user credentials directly within agents to access data. This is a critical security flaw and a direct violation of security best practices and data protection regulations. Storing credentials in plain text or easily accessible formats makes them vulnerable to compromise, leading to potential unauthorized access to the entire Domino environment and all its data. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this scenario by first understanding the data sensitivity and the intended audience for each piece of information. The decision-making process should prioritize leveraging Domino's native security features, such as ACLs and view security, before resorting to custom agent logic for data restriction. When designing views, consider using reader fields or creating separate views for different user roles. If agents are necessary for dynamic filtering, ensure they are robust, thoroughly tested, and operate within the context of the user's existing permissions. Always adhere to the principle of least privilege, granting only the minimum access necessary for users to perform their duties. Regular security audits and code reviews are essential to identify and mitigate potential vulnerabilities. Question 9. Investigation of a developer's process for implementing a new feature in an IBM Notes and Domino 9. 0 application that requires reading sensitive user preference data from a hidden field within a document. The developer is aware that this field is not intended for direct modification by end users, but is necessary for the new feature's logic. Option A. Developer writes a new agent that directly manipulates the underlying database files to extract the sensitive preference data, bypassing standard notes API functions. Option B. The developer thoroughly analyzes the existing database design, including ACLs and field properties, to understand how the sensitive data is protected. They then implement the new feature by creating a new agent that reads the data using appropriate notes API calls, ensuring the agent runs with sufficient but not excessive privileges, and thoroughly tests the agent's functionality and security implications before deployment. Option C. The developer directly modifies the existing document form to make the sensitive preference field visible to all users, believing this will simplify data access for the new feature. Option D. The developer proceeds with implementing the new feature by hard-coding the expected values of the sensitive preference field into the agent's logic, assuming users will not change them. The correct answer is B. The developer thoroughly analyzes the existing database design, including ACLs and field properties, to understand how the sensitive data is protected. They then implement the new feature by creating a new agent that reads the data using appropriate notes API calls, ensuring the agent runs with sufficient but not excessive privileges, and thoroughly tests the agent's functionality and security implications before deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and user privacy within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 application. The developer is tasked with a seemingly minor modification that, if handled improperly, could lead to unintended data exposure or manipulation. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the request for functionality with the inherent responsibilities of data stewardship. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any changes adhere to established development best practices, and crucially, the implicit trust users place in the application's security and accuracy. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing application's data structures and security controls before implementing any changes. This proactive stance ensures that the modification is integrated seamlessly and securely, without introducing vulnerabilities or compromising data integrity. Adhering to the principle of least privilege and conducting rigorous testing are fundamental to responsible application development, aligning with general ethical guidelines for software engineering that emphasize reliability, safety, and security. An incorrect approach that involves directly modifying the database design without understanding the implications for existing data or user access would be a significant ethical and professional failure. This could lead to data corruption, unauthorized access, or a breach of user privacy, violating the trust placed in the developer and the application. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing the change without any form of testing, demonstrates a disregard for quality assurance and user experience, potentially introducing bugs or performance issues that negatively impact users. A third incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about data types or relationships without verification, risks introducing subtle but critical errors that could have far-reaching consequences for data accuracy and application functionality. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the requirements, followed by an assessment of potential impacts on data, security, and users. This framework should include thorough analysis of the existing system, meticulous planning of the proposed changes, rigorous testing at multiple stages, and comprehensive documentation. When faced with requests that seem straightforward, it is imperative to always consider the broader implications and to err on the side of caution and thoroughness. Question 10. What factors determine the appropriate level of access control and data security configuration within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application from a stakeholder perspective? Option A. The sensitivity of the data being stored, the roles and responsibilities of different user groups, and the principle of least privilege. Option B. The maximum number of concurrent users the Domino server can support. Option C. The default security settings provided by IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 without any customization. Option D. The personal preferences of the lead developer regarding security implementation. The correct answer is A. the sensitivity of the data being stored, the roles and responsibilities of different user groups, and the principle of least privilege. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for robust security with the practicalities of user access and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the principles of data security and access control within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0, ensuring compliance with established best practices and potential regulatory considerations relevant to data handling, even if not explicitly stated as a specific jurisdiction for this exam. The core of the difficulty is in making informed decisions about who should have access to what information and under what circumstances, without compromising the application's security or the data's confidentiality. The correct approach emphasizes a layered security model, starting with the principle of least privilege. This means granting users only the minimum access necessary to perform their job functions. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0, this translates to carefully configuring database ACLs, access control lists, document security settings, and potentially leveraging features like field-level encryption or reader/author fields where appropriate. This approach aligns with general data protection principles, aiming to minimize the attack surface and prevent unauthorized data exposure or modification. It represents best professional practice because it proactively mitigates risks, enhances data integrity, and builds user trust by demonstrating a commitment to responsible data stewardship. An incorrect approach might involve granting broad access to all users by default, assuming that most users are trustworthy. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it violates the principle of least privilege and increases the risk of accidental or malicious data breaches. Such an approach could lead to unauthorized viewing, modification, or deletion of sensitive information, potentially resulting in reputational damage, financial loss, and non-compliance with data privacy expectations. Another incorrect approach could be to implement overly complex and restrictive security measures that hinder legitimate user access and productivity. While security is paramount, an application that is too difficult to use will likely lead to workarounds, which can themselves introduce security vulnerabilities. This approach fails professionally by neglecting the usability aspect of the application, which is a critical component of successful software deployment. It can also lead to user frustration and a perception that the security measures are arbitrary or ineffective. A third incorrect approach might be to rely solely on the default security settings provided by IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 without customization. While these defaults offer a baseline level of security, they are rarely sufficient for specific application requirements or for addressing the unique data sensitivity of an organization. This approach is professionally deficient, as it demonstrates a lack of due diligence in understanding and mitigating the specific risks associated with the application's data and user base. It fails to adapt security to the actual needs of the application and its stakeholders. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment. This includes identifying the types of data being stored, the potential impact of unauthorized access or modification, and the different user roles and their corresponding access needs. Following this, a security design should be developed based on the principle of least privilege, utilizing the security features available within IBM Notes and Domino 9.0. Regular review and auditing of access controls are also crucial to ensure ongoing effectiveness and compliance with evolving security requirements. Question 11. When evaluating the design of a new IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application that will handle sensitive customer data, which approach to risk assessment is most crucial for ensuring the application's security and integrity? Option A. Relying on ad hoc security checks and implementing security controls only when specific vulnerabilities are reported by users or external security audits. Option B. Focusing primarily on meeting all functional requirements as defined by the business stakeholders, assuming security measures will be addressed by the IT department post-deployment. Option C. Implementing a comprehensive risk assessment framework that identifies potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impacts early in the development lifecycle, and developing mitigation strategies accordingly. Option D. Delegating all security-related risk assessment and mitigation responsibilities to a dedicated IT security team, with minimal developer involvement in the process. The correct answer is C. Implementing a comprehensive risk assessment framework that identifies potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impacts early in the development lifecycle, and developing mitigation strategies accordingly. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for robust security and data integrity with the practicalities of development and deployment. The core professional challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential risks associated with data handling and access controls within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 social edition environment. Developers must not only understand the technical implications of their design choices, but also their adherence to established best practices and any implicit regulatory considerations for data protection, even if not explicitly stated as a formal regulation for this exam scope. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and systematic identification of potential vulnerabilities. By conducting a thorough risk assessment, developers can anticipate and address security weaknesses, data corruption risks, and unauthorized access before they manifest in a production environment. This aligns with the principle of building secure and reliable applications from the outset, minimizing the likelihood of costly remediation and reputational damage. In the context of application development, this systematic approach ensures that security and data integrity are not afterthoughts but integral components of the development lifecycle. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting functional requirements without considering security implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the potential for data breaches, unauthorized modifications, or system downtime, all of which can have severe consequences for users and the organization. Such an approach violates the implicit ethical obligation to develop applications that are not only functional but also secure and trustworthy. Another incorrect approach that relies on ad hoc security measures implemented only when issues arise is also professionally deficient. This reactive stance is inherently risky, as it assumes that problems will be easily identifiable and rectifiable, which is often not the case. It can lead to a patchwork of security solutions that are difficult to manage and may not fully address underlying vulnerabilities. This approach demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to embrace a comprehensive risk management strategy, which is a cornerstone of professional software development. Finally, an approach that delegates all security responsibilities to a separate IT security team without developer involvement is flawed. While collaboration is essential, developers are in the best position to understand the application's architecture and potential vulnerabilities from a design perspective. Failing to integrate security considerations into the development process itself means that security is treated as an external constraint rather than an intrinsic quality of the application. This can lead to misinterpretations of requirements and the implementation of security measures that are either ineffective or hinder application functionality. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should include identifying assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and potential impacts. Developers should then prioritize risks based on their likelihood and severity and develop mitigation strategies. This process should be iterative, with regular reviews and updates as the application evolves and the threat landscape changes. Collaboration with security experts and stakeholders is crucial throughout this process. Question 12. The monitoring system demonstrates an attempt to capture detailed audit trails for all user interactions within a critical financial application developed on IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition. However, the current implementation logs the full content of all message fields, including account numbers and personal identification details, alongside standard audit metadata like timestamps and user ID. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory compliance and professional best practices for this scenario? Option A. Continue with the current logging implementation, assuming that the detailed audit trail is paramount for security and compliance, and address any potential data privacy concerns through separate, ad hoc data masking processes. Option B. Expand the logging to include even more granular details, such as the user's IP address and browser version for every interaction, to create an exhaustive record for forensic analysis. Option C. Implement a complete disablement of all logging for this specific financial application to avoid any potential data exposure, relying solely on application-level security controls. Option D. Reconfigure the logging mechanism to capture only essential audit metadata, such as user ID, timestamp, action type, and application context, while excluding the actual content of sensitive fields within messages. The correct answer is D. Reconfigure the logging mechanism to capture only essential audit metadata, such as user ID, timestamp, action type, and application context, while excluding the actual content of sensitive fields within messages. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 application development, specifically concerning regulatory compliance. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for effective application monitoring and auditing with the imperative to protect sensitive user data and adhere to data protection regulations. Developers must ensure that logging mechanisms, while providing valuable insights for troubleshooting and security, do not inadvertently capture or expose personally identifiable information, PI, or other confidential data beyond what is strictly necessary and legally permissible. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a privacy-by-design methodology. By implementing granular logging that captures only essential metadata, like user ID, timestamp, action type, and application context, and avoids logging the actual content of sensitive fields or messages, developers ensure compliance with data minimization principles. This approach aligns with the spirit and letter of data protection regulations, which mandate that personal data be processed only for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes, and be adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary. It also demonstrates a commitment to user trust and ethical data handling. An incorrect approach that logs the full content of user messages or sensitive data fields is professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and ethical failures. Such logging constitutes a clear violation of data minimization principles and likely breaches data protection laws by collecting excessive personal data without a legitimate and proportionate basis. This could lead to severe legal penalties, reputational damage, and a loss of user confidence. Furthermore, storing such comprehensive data increases the risk of data breaches, as a compromise of the logging system would expose a vast amount of sensitive information. Another incorrect approach, which relies on a blanket exclusion of all logging for certain sensitive applications, is also professionally flawed. While seemingly protective, it creates a blind spot in the monitoring system. This lack of visibility can hinder effective security incident response, make it impossible to audit user activity for compliance or malicious intent, and impede legitimate troubleshooting efforts. It represents an abdication of responsibility for maintaining a secure and auditable application environment, potentially violating regulatory requirements for audit trails and security monitoring. The professional reasoning process for navigating such situations should involve a thorough risk assessment and a clear understanding of applicable data protection regulations. Developers should consult with legal and compliance teams to define what constitutes necessary data for logging purposes. They should then implement technical controls that enforce these definitions, such as field-level masking or exclusion from logs. Regular reviews of logging configurations and audit trails are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory landscapes. The principle of least privilege should extend to logging, ensuring only the minimum necessary data is captured and retained. Question 13. The assessment process reveals that a critical business application developed on IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition is experiencing performance issues when users attempt to access large datasets. The current implementation retrieves all documents from a specific database and then uses client-side Lotus script to filter and display relevant information to the user. This approach, while functional, is becoming a bottleneck and raises concerns about data security. The development team is considering alternative strategies to improve performance and ensure data confidentiality. Which of the following approaches represents the most secure and efficient method for handling data access in this scenario, adhering to best practices for IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application development? Option A. Retrieve all documents from the database and implement comprehensive client-side Java script to filter and display data, ensuring only authorized fields are rendered in the UI. Option B. Implement server-side views with appropriate access control lists, ACL, and reader fields to restrict document visibility based on user roles and group memberships. Option C. Grant all users who need to access the data manager or designer access to the database to allow them to bypass any potential data retrieval limitations. Option D. Modify the application to display all data fields by default, and rely on user training to instruct users on which fields they should and should not view. The correct answer is B. Implement server-side views with appropriate access control lists, ACL, and reader fields to restrict document visibility based on user roles and group memberships. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, where a developer must balance the need for efficient data retrieval with the potential for exposing sensitive information. Professional challenge lies in understanding the implications of different data access methods within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition's security model and its underlying data structures. Developers must exercise careful judgment to ensure that, while applications are functional and performant, they do not inadvertently compromise data confidentiality or integrity, which are paramount in any regulated environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the Domino database's built-in security features, specifically by designing views that restrict access to documents based on user roles or group memberships defined within the Domino directory. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security best practice. By defining access control lists, ACL, at the database and document level, and by using view selection formulas and reader fields, developers ensure that only authorized users can access specific data. This method is robust, scalable, and directly supported by the Notes/Domino architecture, preventing unauthorized data exposure without requiring complex custom code for every access scenario. This adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of data protection and privacy inherent in application development, even without specific external regulations being cited for this exam. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to retrieve all documents from a database and then filter them in the client-side Lotus script or JavaScript code. This is a significant security failure because it bypasses the server-side security mechanisms. Sensitive data is transmitted to the client unnecessarily, increasing the risk of interception or unauthorized access if the client machine is compromised. It also creates a performance bottleneck and is inefficient. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on the application's user interface to hide fields or data. UI-level hiding is easily circumvented and does not prevent the underlying data from being retrieved. This is a superficial security measure that fails to protect data at the source. A third incorrect approach is to grant manager or designer access to all users who need to view data. This grants far more privileges than necessary, violating the principle of least privilege and exposing the database design and security settings to unauthorized modification. This is a severe security and ethical lapse. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach data access design by first understanding the data's sensitivity and the intended audience. They should then consult the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition documentation and best practices for security. The decision-making process should prioritize server-side security controls over client-side filtering. Developers should always aim to implement the most granular access control possible, using ACLs, roles, and reader fields. When in doubt, it is better to err on the side of caution and restrict access than to grant too much. Regular security audits and testing are also crucial to ensure that implemented controls are effective. Question 14. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual spike in database replication errors for a critical customer-facing application hosted on IBM Domino 9.0 Social Edition. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action to address this anomaly? Option A. Disregard the replication errors as a temporary network glitch and wait for the system to self-correct. Option B. Immediately restore the application's database to its last known good backup to ensure data consistency for end users. Option C. Initiate a detailed forensic analysis of Domino server logs and replication history for the affected database, while temporarily isolating the database from further replication to prevent potential data corruption propagation. Option D. Send an urgent email to all application users and stakeholders informing them of a potential data integrity issue. The correct answer is C. Initiate a detailed forensic analysis of Domino server logs and replication history for the affected database, while temporarily isolating the database from further replication to prevent potential data corruption propagation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data integrity and application security within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment. The monitoring system has detected an anomaly that could indicate unauthorized access or a data corruption event. The core challenge lies in determining the appropriate response without compromising the integrity of the investigation, potentially alerting malicious actors, or causing unnecessary disruption to business operations. The need for a swift yet thorough approach is paramount, requiring a balance between immediate containment and long-term resolution. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a systematic and documented investigation. This involves isolating the affected application or server to prevent further potential compromise, followed by a detailed forensic analysis of logs and system data. The goal is to identify the root cause, the extent of the impact, and any evidence of unauthorized activity. This methodical process aligns with best practices for incident response and data governance, ensuring that actions are taken based on evidence rather than speculation. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino, this would involve leveraging built-in logging mechanisms, Domino server console commands, and potentially external security tools to gather information. The emphasis on documentation ensures accountability and provides a clear audit trail for compliance and future reference. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately revert the application to a previous backup without thorough investigation. This action, while seemingly a quick fix, could erase critical forensic evidence needed to understand the nature and origin of the anomaly. It might also mask a persistent vulnerability that could be exploited again. From a regulatory perspective, failing to conduct a proper investigation could violate data breach notification requirements if sensitive data was compromised, as the scope and impact would remain unknown. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a transient issue or a false positive. This demonstrates a severe lack of due diligence and a disregard for application security and data integrity. In a regulated environment, such an action could lead to significant legal and financial penalties if the anomaly escalates into a data breach or system failure that impacts compliance obligations. It also undermines the trust placed in the IT department to maintain secure and reliable systems. A third incorrect approach involves immediately notifying all users and stakeholders about a potential security incident without a clear understanding of the situation. While transparency is important, premature and unverified announcements can cause panic, damage reputation, and potentially alert attackers to the fact that their activities have been detected, leading them to cover their tracks. This premature notification bypasses the critical step of gathering facts and assessing the actual risk. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should employ a structured incident response framework. This typically involves 1. Preparation, having established security policies, incident response plans, and trained personnel. 2. Identification, recognizing and confirming the anomaly through monitoring systems and initial assessment. 3. Containment, taking immediate steps to limit the scope of the incident. 4. Eradication, removing the cause of the incident. 5. Recovery, restoring affected systems and data. 6. Lessons learned, analyzing the incident to improve future responses and prevent recurrence. In this specific IBM Notes and Domino context, the decision-making process should involve consulting relevant Domino administration guides and security best practices for the 9.0 Social Edition, focusing on log analysis, server configuration checks, and application-level security settings. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that integrating a bleeding-edge, third-party JavaScript library for enhanced UI interactivity in an existing IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application could significantly improve user experience, but it also introduces potential compatibility issues with the Domino framework and requires extensive retesting of core functionalities. Given the need to maintain application stability and adhere to established development lifecycles, which approach best balances innovation with responsible development practices. Option A. Conduct a phased pilot implementation of the new library on a non-critical application module, thoroughly documenting performance, security, and compatibility with Domino 9.0 Social Edition features. If successful, develop a comprehensive migration plan for broader integration, ensuring all existing functionalities are validated. Option B, defer the integration of the new library indefinitely, citing the risks and complexities, and focus solely on maintaining the current application's stability without exploring any new UI enhancements. Option C, implement the new library by replacing existing UI components without a thorough impact assessment, prioritizing the visual appeal over functional integrity and long-term maintainability. Option D, immediately integrate the new JavaScript library across the entire application to capitalize on its perceived benefits and address user feedback promptly, assuming any compatibility issues can be resolved post-deployment. Correct answer is A. Conduct a phased pilot implementation of the new library on a non-critical application module, thoroughly documenting performance, security, and compatibility with Domino 9.0 Social Edition features. If successful, develop a comprehensive migration plan for broader integration, ensuring all existing functionalities are validated. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the desire for cutting-edge features with the practical realities of maintaining existing systems and adhering to established development lifecycles. The professional challenge lies in evaluating the true value of a proposed enhancement against the potential risks and costs, particularly when the enhancement deviates from the current, well-understood development path. Careful judgment is required to avoid introducing instability or unnecessary complexity without a clear, demonstrable benefit that outweighs the drawbacks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based evaluation process. By conducting a thorough assessment of the proposed features' impact on existing applications, infrastructure, and user workflows, developers can make an informed decision. This aligns with the principles of responsible software development, which emphasize stability, maintainability, and risk mitigation. The focus on understanding the why behind the proposed change and its alignment with business objectives ensures that development efforts are directed towards genuine value creation rather than chasing trends. This methodical approach also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring that changes are well documented, tested, and understood, reducing the likelihood of introducing security vulnerabilities or operational disruptions that could have compliance implications. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on adopting the latest technology without a clear business case or impact assessment is professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to consider the broader implications for the application ecosystem. Such an approach risks introducing instability, increasing maintenance overhead, and potentially creating security gaps that could lead to regulatory noncompliance. For instance, adopting a new framework without understanding its compatibility with existing Domino 9.0 Social Edition features or its security implications could violate data protection regulations if sensitive information is compromised. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate user requests without a comprehensive evaluation of technical feasibility and long-term support is also professionally unsound. While user feedback is crucial, unchecked implementation can lead to a fragmented and unmanageable application landscape. This can result in increased technical debt and a higher risk of future compliance issues due to a lack of standardized practices and thorough testing. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage evaluation. 1. Understand the core business need or problem the proposed enhancement aims to address. 2. Assess the technical feasibility and impact on the existing IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment, considering compatibility, performance, and security. 3. Evaluate the long-term maintainability and supportability of the proposed change. 4. Quantify the benefits, tangible and intangible, against the costs, development, testing, deployment, ongoing maintenance. 5. Consider potential risks and mitigation strategies, including any regulatory or compliance implications. 6. Document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen path. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal a critical security vulnerability in a deployed IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application that handles sensitive customer data. The vulnerability could allow unauthorized access to this data. The development team has a potential fix ready, but the standard testing and deployment cycle typically takes several days. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this critical security vulnerability? Option A. Document the vulnerability and monitor the system, hoping that it is not exploited before the next scheduled maintenance window. Option B. Roll back the entire application to the last known stable version to eliminate the vulnerability, accepting the associated downtime and data loss. Option C. Immediately deploy the fix without any further testing or documentation to mitigate the security risk as quickly as possible. Option D. Develop and deploy a targeted hotfix for the vulnerability, ensuring it undergoes expedited but thorough testing and follows the established change management process for deployment. The correct answer is D. Develop and deploy a targeted hotfix for the vulnerability, ensuring it undergoes expedited but thorough testing and follows the established change management process for deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a critical security vulnerability is discovered post-deployment. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of remediation with the need to maintain application stability and adhere to established development and deployment processes. Rushing a fix without proper testing or documentation can introduce new issues or violate compliance requirements. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a hotfix that undergoes rigorous, albeit expedited, testing and is deployed through a controlled change management process represents best professional practice. This approach acknowledges the severity of the vulnerability while ensuring that the fix is effective, does not introduce regressions, and is properly documented. This aligns with general IT best practices for incident response and change management, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate secure and reliable systems. The focus is on minimizing risk to both the application's integrity and the data it handles. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the fix immediately without any testing or documentation is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses quality assurance, increasing the risk of introducing further vulnerabilities or system instability, which could lead to data breaches or service disruptions. This violates the principle of due diligence in maintaining secure systems. Rolling back the entire application to a previous stable version without attempting a targeted fix is also problematic. While it might temporarily mitigate the vulnerability, it leads to significant downtime and loss of recent data or functionality, impacting business operations. This is an inefficient and disruptive response that fails to address the root cause effectively. Ignoring the vulnerability and hoping it goes unnoticed is a severe ethical and regulatory breach. It demonstrates a disregard for user security and data protection, potentially leading to significant legal and reputational damage if discovered. This directly contravenes any implicit or explicit requirements for responsible system management and security. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first assessing the severity and impact of the vulnerability. Following this, they should consult established incident response and change management policies. The decision-making process should prioritize a solution that effectively remediates the vulnerability while minimizing disruption and adhering to quality and security standards. This involves a risk-based approach, weighing the risks of immediate deployment against the risks of delay. Communication with stakeholders regarding the issue and the proposed solution is also crucial. Question 17. Compliance review shows that a new feature in an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is designed to track user engagement with specific content to provide personalized recommendations. The development team has proposed several implementation strategies. Which strategy best aligns with data privacy principles and regulatory requirements for handling user data? Option A. Proceed with the feature implementation as planned, focusing on delivering the personalized recommendations, and address any potential data privacy concerns or regulatory compliance issues only if they are raised by users or auditors. Option B. Develop the feature to capture all user clicks and viewing durations, and then apply a simple removal of direct identifiers like usernames, without considering the potential for re-identification through other collected metadata. Option C. Implement the feature by collecting all user interaction data related to content access, including timestamps, IP addresses, and device information, and store it in a central database for future analysis, assuming anonymization can be applied later if needed. Option D. Design the feature to collect only the minimum user interaction data strictly necessary for generating immediate personalized recommendations, and implement robust pseudonymization techniques for any data that is retained for aggregated analytics, with clear data retention policies. Correct answer is C. Implement the feature by collecting all user interaction data related to content access, including timestamps, IP addresses, and device information, and store it in a central database for future analysis, assuming anonymization can be applied later if needed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in application development where a new feature, while functionally beneficial, introduces potential data privacy risks. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for enhanced user experience and data utility with the stringent requirements of data protection regulations. Developers must proactively identify and mitigate these risks before deployment, rather than reacting to potential breaches or non-compliance issues. The professional challenge is to ensure that the implementation adheres to the spirit and letter of data privacy laws, even when the technology itself offers new ways to process information. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach demonstrates a commitment to data minimization and purpose limitation, core principles of data privacy. By designing the application to only collect and process the minimum data necessary for the specific, stated purpose of the new feature, and by ensuring this data is anonymized or pseudonymized where possible, the development team is actively reducing the potential for unauthorized access or misuse. This proactive stance aligns with best professional practices that prioritize user privacy and regulatory compliance. It reflects a deep understanding of the potential impact of data handling and a commitment to responsible development. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the implementation without a thorough data privacy impact assessment. This failure to assess risks upfront is a direct violation of the principle of accountability and due diligence required by data protection regulations. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for potential harm to individuals whose data might be compromised. Another incorrect approach is to collect and store all user interaction data indefinitely, even if it's not directly required for the new feature's immediate functionality. This violates the principle of data minimization and storage limitation. It creates an unnecessary data footprint, increasing the risk of a significant breach and making it harder to comply with data subject rights, such as the right to erasure. A third incorrect approach is to assume that anonymization is automatically achieved by simply removing direct identifiers, without considering the possibility of re-identification through other means. This demonstrates a superficial understanding of data privacy and can lead to regulatory noncompliance if the data is later deemed re-identifiable. It fails to meet the standard of robust anonymization or pseudonymization required to protect individuals. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to application development, integrating data privacy considerations from the initial design phase. This involves conducting thorough data protection impact assessments, DPIA, for any new feature that processes personal data, especially those involving novel data collection or processing methods. Developers should always strive to collect only the data that is strictly necessary for the intended purpose, and to anonymize or pseudonymize data whenever feasible. Regular training on data protection regulations and best practices is crucial for all development team members. When in doubt, consulting with legal or privacy experts is a sign of professional maturity and adherence to ethical standards. Question 18. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for personalized user experiences within enterprise applications. A new feature is proposed for an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 social edition application that would leverage user profile data, including contact information and past interaction history, to proactively suggest relevant content and connections. Before commencing development, what is the most critical step to ensure regulatory compliance and ethical data handling? Option A. Conduct a thorough privacy impact assessment to identify and mitigate risks associated with collecting and processing user profile data for the new feature, ensuring adherence to data minimization and purpose limitation principles, and obtaining explicit user consent where necessary. Option B. Develop the feature with a general understanding of data privacy, implementing basic security measures without a specific review of how the new feature will handle user profile data. Option C. Implement the feature using the most advanced encryption available for all user profile data, without first assessing the necessity of collecting and processing that specific data for the feature's stated purpose. Option D. Proceed with development based on the business's stated need for personalization, assuming that existing data privacy policies are sufficient for the new functionality. Correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough privacy impact assessment to identify and mitigate risks associated with collecting and processing user profile data for the new feature, ensuring adherence to data minimization and purpose limitation principles, and obtaining explicit user consent where necessary. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where the need for rapid feature deployment clashes with the imperative to maintain data privacy and security, particularly concerning personally identifiable information. PI. Developers must balance the business's desire for competitive advantage through new features with the legal and ethical obligations to protect user data. The complexity arises from understanding how data is collected, processed, and stored within the Domino environment, and ensuring that any new functionality adheres to the relevant data protection regulations. The specific challenge here is to implement a feature that, while beneficial, could inadvertently expose sensitive data if not handled with extreme care and adherence to established privacy principles. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed features, data handling mechanisms against the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, as mandated by data protection regulations. This means ensuring that only the absolutely necessary PII is collected and processed for the specific, stated purpose of the new feature. Furthermore, it requires implementing robust access controls and encryption where appropriate within the Domino application to safeguard this data. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing user privacy and regulatory compliance, thereby mitigating legal risks and building user trust. The focus on understanding the data flow and implementing safeguards before development is a proactive measure that prevents costly remediation later. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the feature without a detailed privacy impact assessment and without explicit user consent for the collection and processing of PII for this new purpose represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach violates the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, potentially leading to unauthorized data processing and breaches of privacy. It also fails to uphold the ethical obligation to be transparent with users about how their data is being used. Developing the feature with a general understanding of data privacy, but without specific controls for the PII involved, is also professionally unacceptable. This hope for the best strategy ignores the granular requirements of data protection laws, which often necessitate specific technical and organizational measures. It creates a high risk of accidental data exposure or misuse, even if the intent was not malicious. Proceeding with development based solely on the business's stated need for the feature, without independently verifying its compliance with data protection laws, is a critical oversight. Developers have a professional responsibility to ensure their work is compliant, not just to fulfill business requests. This approach abdicates that responsibility and exposes the organization to legal penalties and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to application development, integrating privacy and security considerations from the outset. This involves 1. Understanding the data, clearly identifying what PII is involved and how it will be used. 2. Assessing impact, conducting a privacy impact assessment to identify potential risks. 3. Designing for privacy, incorporating privacy by design principles into the application architecture. 4. Implementing controls, deploying technical and organizational safeguards to protect PII. 5. Seeking consent, ensuring appropriate user consent is obtained where required. 6. Continuous review, regularly reviewing and updating privacy measures as the application evolves. Question 19. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 application used for financial transaction processing is experiencing significant performance degradation. The development team needs to improve response times without introducing errors or compromising data security. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge? Option A. Conduct thorough profiling to identify specific performance bottlenecks, then implement targeted, iterative optimizations, followed by rigorous testing of each change. Option B. Apply broad, sweeping code refactoring to all modules of the application, hoping to uncover and fix performance issues incidentally. Option C. Focus solely on optimizing the user interface elements and client-side scripting, assuming all performance issues stem from the front end. Option D. Immediately implement a series of widely recommended but untested performance tuning scripts across the application based on general Domino best practices. The correct answer is A. Conduct thorough profiling to identify specific performance bottlenecks, then implement targeted iterative optimizations, followed by rigorous testing of each change. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development: optimizing performance without compromising data integrity or user experience. The developer is tasked with improving the speed of a critical Domino application that handles sensitive financial data. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for rapid improvement with the need to adhere to established development best practices and potential regulatory requirements related to data handling and application stability, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's limited scope. The pressure to deliver a faster application can lead to shortcuts that might have long-term negative consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, iterative process of profiling, identifying bottlenecks, and implementing targeted optimizations. This aligns with best practices in software engineering, emphasizing a data-driven approach to performance tuning. By first understanding the current performance characteristics through profiling, the developer can make informed decisions about where to apply optimization efforts. Iterative testing ensures that each change is validated and does not introduce new issues. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended side effects and ensures that the optimizations are effective and sustainable, reflecting a professional commitment to quality and reliability in application development. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing broad, untested changes without profiling is a significant risk. This approach bypasses the crucial step of understanding the root cause of performance issues, leading to potentially ineffective or even detrimental modifications. It is an unprofessional gamble that could introduce new bugs, degrade overall application stability, or negatively impact data integrity, all of which are unacceptable in a professional development context. Applying optimizations based solely on anecdotal evidence or common assumptions without empirical validation is equally problematic. While certain patterns are known to cause performance issues, assuming they are the cause in this specific application without profiling is speculative. This can lead to wasted effort on non-existent problems or, worse, optimizations that negatively affect other, more critical parts of the application. This demonstrates a lack of rigorous analysis and professional due diligence. Focusing exclusively on client-side optimizations without considering server-side or database-level factors ignores the holistic nature of application performance. A bottleneck might not be in the user interface rendering, but in database queries, agent execution, or server resource allocation. Neglecting these potential server-side issues means the optimization effort is incomplete and unlikely to yield significant or lasting improvements, indicating a superficial understanding of performance tuning. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance optimization by first establishing a baseline through comprehensive profiling. This data-driven insight is paramount for identifying actual bottlenecks. Subsequent optimization efforts should be incremental, with each change rigorously tested to confirm its positive impact and to detect any adverse side effects. This iterative process, combined with a thorough understanding of the application's architecture, both client and server-side, ensures that optimizations are effective, maintainable, and do not compromise application integrity or user experience. When faced with performance issues, always ask, what is the data telling us? And what is the potential impact of this change on the entire system? Question 20. The assessment process reveals that a critical IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application requires a refined security model to restrict access to sensitive customer data based on user roles. Developers are considering several methods to implement this access control, which approach best adheres to the platform's security architecture and professional best practices for data protection. Option A. Embed user credentials and specific access permissions directly within the applications. Load a script or JavaScript code for each user. Option B. Disable all security settings within the Domino database properties to simplify access and focus solely on application functionality. Option C. Grant all users full access to the database by default and implement custom Lotus script or JavaScript code within the application to filter data displayed to each user. Option D. Implement granular access control by configuring the database access control list, ACL, with specific roles and assigning users to these roles, ensuring that only authorized users can access or modify specific data. Correct answer is D. Implement granular access control by configuring the database access control list, ACL, with specific roles and assigning users to these roles, ensuring that only authorized users can access or modify specific data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing application security within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition. Developers must balance the need for efficient data access with robust security measures to protect sensitive information. The challenge lies in understanding the implications of different security configurations on application functionality and compliance with data protection principles, which are implicitly governed by general data privacy best practices and the security features inherent in the Domino platform itself. A failure to correctly implement security can lead to unauthorized access, data breaches, and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging Domino's built-in security features, specifically the access control list, ACL, and the use of roles, to granularly control access to application data. This method aligns with the principle of least privilege, ensuring that users only have access to the data and functions necessary for their roles. By defining specific roles within the ACL and assigning users to these roles, developers can create a secure and manageable access framework. This approach is best professional practice because it directly utilizes the platform's intended security mechanisms, promoting maintainability, auditability, and adherence to general data protection principles by minimizing the attack surface. It allows for dynamic adjustments to access as user roles change, without requiring extensive code modifications. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to grant broad access permissions to all users by default, relying solely on application-level logic to filter data. This is professionally unacceptable as it violates the principle of least privilege and significantly increases the risk of unauthorized data exposure. It bypasses the fundamental security controls provided by Domino, making the application inherently less secure and harder to audit. Another incorrect approach is to hardcode user credentials or specific user access rights directly within the Lotus script or JavaScript code of the application. This is a critical security vulnerability. It makes access control difficult to manage, prone to errors, and exposes sensitive credentials if the code is compromised. It also fails to leverage the centralized and robust security management capabilities of Domino, leading to a fragmented and insecure security posture. A third incorrect approach is to disable security features within the Domino database properties to simplify development or troubleshooting. This is a severe ethical and professional failure. It directly undermines the security architecture of the Domino platform, leaving the application and its data vulnerable to a wide range of threats. It demonstrates a disregard for data protection and the responsibilities of a developer to secure the applications they build. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach application security by first understanding the data sensitivity and user roles involved. They should then consult the platform's documentation and best practices for security implementation. The decision-making process should prioritize leveraging built-in security features over custom, less secure solutions. Regular security reviews and testing are crucial to identify and remediate vulnerabilities. When faced with a choice, always opt for the solution that provides granular control, auditability, and aligns with the principle of least privilege, as supported by the platform's native security mechanisms.